Welcome to Zoom In, Zoom Out, your global look at news from Taiwan. I'm your host, Alec MacDonald. How prepared is Taiwan's military for a potential Chinese invasion? What about a blockade? These are questions that the Han Kuang exercises are supposed to answer. The yearly week-long drill, however, is now going to be 2 weeks, followed by what Taiwan calls increased gray zone activity from China's People's Liberation Army. They'll additionally call up another 22,000 reservists to participate in unscripted attacks meant to test Taiwan's military resilience. Joining us today to discuss all of this is Tony Hu, the former senior director at the Pentagon for Taiwan, Mongolia, and China. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alec.
There's recently been a lot of increase in gray zone activity. Can you quickly go through, for those unfamiliar with what gray zone activity is, what does that mean? What does that look like? And could you give us an example?
Gray zone activity are those type of things that destabilizes the government, but it's short of act of war. So things such as the recent Chinese intrusion into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, crossing the center line, and also the use of the military militia, maritime militia to disrupt Taiwan's fishing activities. And even economic coercion is part of the gray zone activity, such as China stopped importing from Taiwan's agricultural products and fish and stuff. They try to use the people, such as the farmer of the pineapples and the fish growers, to complain to the government. So these are the type of things that's short of act of war, but it disrupts a targeted government. Some of the stuff that China Coast Guard is doing to Taiwan fishing fleet, for example, they board in and stop them, and also the encirclement of Taiwan using the military aircraft and their ships that intrudes into the 24 nautical mile zone, for example. These are all trying to serve intimidation of Taiwan, trying to instill defeatism. We're so strong, we're so big, we're surrounding you. These are gray zone activities.
So there's been recent discussion that the PLA has shifted to making gray zone activity a main part of trying to take Taiwan, and that they're going to aim for coercion first before attempting an amphibious assault. Is that the way that the PLA is heading?
Gray zone activity in and by itself will not be able to convince Taiwan to surrender. But what it does do is tear Taiwan apart from the inside. Gray zone activity includes disinformation and cognitive warfare, where if you look at the current split within Taiwan, the people who's saying, hey, let's just be nice to Taiwan, the people who promotes appeasement, they take a totally different position from the ones who wants to protect Taiwan's freedom. So that within Taiwan, is very strong forces to tear Taiwan into two camps. I think that might be China's overall grand strategy, where tear Taiwan apart from the inside and let PLA come in to finish the job. But tearing Taiwan apart from the inside in and by itself is not going to cause Taiwan to surrender to China. The PLA still has to come in. So therefore, it's part of the grand strategy, I believe, and trying to make it easier for China to attack.
So in that case where we see a sudden increase of gray zone activity, and then it turns into an amphibious assault, what potential risks are posed by that specific situation?
China does have a very large military. However, Taiwan, because of its geography, it is protected by water. And no matter how you try to take over a region, you still have to have feet on the ground to say you have it, okay? So China, no matter what, needs to cross the Taiwan Strait. And Taiwan Strait, in a military term, is a kill zone. It's a clean kill zone. When we fight wars, such as in Ukraine, for example, you see some movement up front, you have to be able to identify it's a friend or foe. You don't want to shoot your own guy, right? But if Taiwan Strait is clear, there's no friendly forces over Taiwan Strait, everything that comes over is enemy, you just shoot into it. It's a very easy kill zone, because the time you spend to do identification friend and foe is a time that uncertainty also sometimes makes a difference whether you win or die. But in this case, everything coming over is an enemy, you killed it. So, for example, if the ship wants to get over, first they have to face the long-range Xiongfeng missiles. Then the medium-range Harpoon missiles come in. Then as they're closer, maybe 10 kilometers from the shore, now they're faced with Javelin, with TOW missile, with Hellfire from the helicopter, from the land-based units. And when they get close to the beach, Taiwan has the volcano mine system on the beach. They have to clear the mine while they're getting shot at. So if they can survive to the beach, I'm surprised, okay? I don't think they can survive that long. So Taiwan Strait will basically become a gravesite for the PLA. And at a certain point, the restriction is so great that China can no longer complete the invasion, okay? At that point, the political implication will be greater than the military implication, because if after the death of hundreds and thousands of young men from the one-child family, and they didn't achieve their objective, then the Communist Party will be in trouble, okay? Therefore, the political implication, like I said, will be greater than the military implication. Not only they couldn't take Taiwan, but the communist system will fall. So this is something I think Xi Jinping must think about. If he doesn't have the confidence level that he can win, then he should not start. On the other hand, he's surrounding himself with yes men, so who knows?
What sort of support would Taiwan be able to ascertain from Japan or the United States to help support and defeat the PLA inside the Taiwan Strait?
This is something that actually being exercised by the Japanese and American and the Filipinos in various exercises, and pointing at the possible Taiwan Strait scenario, because I think both Philippines and Japan recognize their national security actually is tied with Taiwan's national security. So, and United States also recognize the continued presence of United States in the Western Pacific rests with having Taiwan continue as a democratic country. So the type of support from the United States certainly will be super strong. I mean, we have already forward deployed a lot of forces and increased our presence, and our continued presence of our one carrier strike group in Japan and our amphibious group also in Japan. And recently we have deployed some more long-range anti-ship stuff in the Philippines, and Japanese have done the same thing in the islands east of Taiwan. So in that sense, the support is already there if we need it, if we need to use it to help defend Taiwan. So, I mean, after all, Taiwan needs to be strong and demonstrate will to fight first before anybody else will come help.
With the United States, Japan, even Germany, a lot of nations will transit the Taiwan Strait to kind of send a signal that this is open water. But do you think that there's more that these nations could do to help deter the gray zone activity to make sure that Xi Jinping has a very low confidence level of taking Taiwan?
Great question. Absolutely. Right now, China can do their gray zone activity because there is not a declared policy concerning gray zone activities. I think the rule-based world, the freedom-loving countries need to have a declared policy where a civilian asset is performing activity that's not consistent with their civilian status, such as China's maritime militia when they form up in South China Sea, 20, 30 ships at a time to push the Filipinos away. When they do that, then they lose their civilian status because they're not performing fishing. You're supposed to be a fishing fleet. Therefore, you're subject to the type of response. If it requires military response, then because you're performing a military mission. So I think this needs to be a declared policy by the free world. And same thing with cyber. You use cyber, but you use cyber to take down my financial system. That's an act of war. I'm not only going to attack you with cyber, I'm going to attack you with kinetic, because I'm defending my country. Just because you didn't shoot a bullet, but you take down my system. So those are type of declared policy that doesn't exist right now. At what point is cyber warfare an act of war? There's no such a thing. If China used cyber to take down Taiwan's electrical grid, nothing happens. Yeah, there ought to be a rule say, hey, if you do this, I'm coming after you with all means available to me. So these are the type of things I believe the free world need to have so that the bad guys, such as China, cannot use the gray zone activities to destabilize, to disrupt normal lives.
Moving to the Han Kuang exercises, what exercises will we see Taiwan's military conduct to help defend against gray zone activity?
This is a tough one because Han Kuang exercise mainly focuses on prevention of a Chinese invasion. Okay, so that's the next step after gray zone. Okay, so to be honest, it's unfortunate that no country, not just Taiwan, no country has developed an effective way to counter the gray zone activity, and China found a niche because most law-abiding countries will not use gray zone activity because they will not use a civilian asset to perform military mission because that's just not what you do. A fisherman have to catch fish, and that's his livelihood. I'm not gonna dictate, you're gonna help this. I supplement you, but you're performing a military mission for me. You know, there's no such a thing in a normal democratic society because people get a vote. No, I need to make a living. I'm gonna catch fish. I'm not gonna perform your job, right? So this is the situation. So during Han Kuang exercise, at least the ones that I used to observe, at that time, gray zone activity wasn't one of the main things that China did. And right now, I haven't been directly involved, so I'm not sure if they played this portion during Han Kuang or other. I'm sure there are other exercises that play the gray zone, but during Han Kuang, I believe they're still focused on defending Taiwan from the actual invasion.
So you mentioned earlier that policy would play a big role in defending and deterring against gray zone activity. Do you think that's enough, though, if the United States and AUKUS and some other nations were to say, these are our rules about gray zone activity? Do you think that's enough to deter China, or do you think more can be done?
China will test it. Even if the free world sets the policy, they will test it. Therefore, there's got to be actions such as, unfortunately, China used the water cannon and stuff. It might involve that, or even sometimes confrontation, hardware confrontations, to push China back, to say you can't do this, because I'm sure China will test the policy. So the policy alone is not enough. There has to be action.
Resiliency is going to be a really big part of the battlefield strategy for Taiwan. So what part of resiliency is tested in the Han Kuang exercises?
Resiliency is a key part of Taiwan's Han Kuang exercise because they have to sustain the fight. Okay, if you don't have resiliency after the first strike, it's over. So at least during the ones that I observed, they always test the ability to move people and material within Taiwan's various combat zones. Depends on where the exercise scenario, where the enemy is landing and all that stuff, where the enemy is striking. So you can replace or sustain the combat forces where they are needed. So this portion is exercise, however, much more needs to be done. It's undoubtedly that much more needs to be done. So Taiwan needs to increase its war reserve stock and increase its ability to protect the transportation link to move forces, and certainly the command control, the entire command control structure, to ensure they can survive and continuously survive, be able to resilient, not only in the military terms, but also in civilian terms, such as your energy grid, your medical supply, and the type of things that allow Taiwan to continue to function.
Thank you for watching this episode of Zoom In, Zoom Out. Make sure to like, subscribe for additional episodes, and leave a comment. We'll see you next time.